Hey, welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. I got two of my buds here, Mr. Anthony Schlegel, and AJ was busy cruising around the James Hospital yesterday, so took some time to join us today. We really appreciate it. Age, we got a huge show today with you, and then Ben Stevens coming up here at about 104, 105. Going to give you all the gambling nuggets. And AJ, you should see when Ben starts talking, Schleg's like his brain starts melting because those gambling guys, like they have all the facts. They're talking about games 10 years ago, the spread, and Schlegel just looks at him. I mean, it'd be like if you sat down in like a fourth-year calculus class in college for the first time, and he just is in admiration.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, Schlegel. I can see Schlegel's. There's many things I think when presented to Schlegel where he is just absolutely blown away, and I think it's fun for us to watch, like the innocent, young, little, kind-hearted Schlegel learn of all these new things.
Yep. I like learning new things, AJ. One thing I was thinking about, this was just literally yesterday. I was thinking about this. Random things pop into my brain. No, this is totally off topic.
Yep.
What would your walkout song be?
Oh.
Like right now, like AJ, like listen, I think about stuff like this. I'm just driving, right? Going to a baseball game over here. And I'm like, you know what? What would my walkout song be? Because I had to do this Grand Rounds thing. We came out to a song. I want to know what would AJ Hawk's walkout song be? Because there's different levels of what you're walking out to, right? So what would that be?
I guess it depends on what you're doing. So I was lucky enough to play 2020 maybe. The Ryder Cup was at Whistling Straits, and I got to do this. I got to participate in this kind of like celebrity Ryder Cup event where the Wednesday, so they all teed off on Thursday. So Wednesday we got to walk through the tunnel and tee off and everything. And Kevin Nealon was my partner. And we played against an international team, and they asked me, like, my walkout song was Eddie Money, Take Me Home Tonight. I tell you what, I know the lyrics may not match whatever people are thinking or what they want, but it's a pretty good walkout song. It'll get stuck in your head.
That's pretty darn remarkable. I like that. Can you tell us, some stories, Kevin Nealon? I mean, that's got to be about as cool as it is. Like, you might
My bad.
More.
Rob Riggle. It was Rob Riggle. My bad. Kevin Nealon was. I played with him in Tahoe back in the day. I respect both those guys a lot. But Rob Riggle was my partner. We played against Sasha Vujacic. Remember the old basketball player for the Lakers? And then Piero, I believe was his last name. An unbelievable Italian soccer player. He's the man. When people loved him. Everyone that knew about soccer absolutely loved this guy. And Rob and myself played pretty well. We ended up winning that match by a pretty good amount, but I think overall we got beat at the event. But there were some cool dudes like Kelly Slater. Got to hang with him a little bit. Different people on the team.
AC Slater,
not AC, but AC. First off, AC doesn't age. You guys can see him. He's he's on every. If you go into a hotel room, he's right there telling you about the movies. But AC looks better now than he did when he was 21.
Just like us, we're like fine wine. We just get better with age. Yep. And you know that AC Slater underneath his clothes still has his singlet from Bayside on. Like, that's just part of the deal. Like, he strips that off. Like, that's his underwear. Anyway, side nugget. Hey, when you're thinking about a feast, how many meats does it require to have a feast? And then how many meats need to be at the dinner table for a banquet? Like, think about that nugget. Just blew your mind.
Ooh, well, I guess to be a feast, it has to be 3 or more meats, no question, right? Three or more to be a feast. To be a banquet, you got to have at least 8 or 9 meats just flopping all over that place. Yeah, that table has to be full, Schlegs.
I like that.
How big does that table have to be? That's another question to hold all that meat.
It's got to be pretty big, I would imagine, Schlegs. You could do it. Go get back in the shop and build us one.
That's the question. How big is the meat table to fit all the meat in? That's something that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of pride, Schlegs. Schlegs been working on building a sturdy base to hold that meat for years. So I'm really happy you're able to get that done. I want to bring this up to you because I always do Today in History on my local show. And tomorrow will be the 30-year anniversary of Under the Table and Dreaming, released by the Dave Matthews Band with such hits as What Would You Say, Ants Marching, and Schlegs' favorite, Satellite, which he enjoys sitting there, maybe burning down some trees and eating some chicken wings too.
Well, Schlegs, I think he's frozen on a perfect. You were frozen at a perfect little time, Schlegs, with your goofy laugh and the straight tango and cash head. But Dave's still doing it. I know, Bob, you see him all the time. You see him more than I do. But Dave is
coming to
still
Columbus this fall in a couple weeks.
Oh, sweet, man. He's still killing it. And you want to go, even if you're not a Dave fan, go to a live show. I think you at least have to respect like how talented and how hard they play.
Schlegel, you live?
First off, you guys I'm alive. What are you talking about? You guys are the ones that introduced me to Dave. People don't realize this, that guys, I came from old school, like workout stuff. And then we're training over there in the prison yard and we're listening to Dave. We're listening to Blunt, right? Like we're listening to all this stuff. I'm just like, how do I got to get up for this stuff? So I just consumed a lot of caffeine and just roll with the punches. I got another question for you. This is a different topic.
Okay.
And side nugget, we should go to a Dave Matthews Band concert. I would like to do it. I've never been to one. So
side nugget, I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay.
Do it.
All right. Here's the other one. NIL. Schools over promising, not delivering. Guys opting out to keep a red shirt. Thoughts? AJ Hawk. What do you got?
Whenever like the NIL, everything that happens with the NIL situation, all the collectives and all this stuff, and who decides who gets how much, like it's hard to ever get like concrete answers. I think everybody is trying to figure it out. But I think when you talk about what guardrails or whatever they have to put in to help things, I think if you need guardrails, you need it to protect the players so they're not getting screwed over where someone promises them something or signs them to a contract that you got to pay on for the next 10 years, and they own your name, image, and likeness when you only should be 6 months or something. Stuff like that to protect the players is what I'm worried about. But I don't know, like what's the next step? Like what's the next thing we will see in the whole NIL situation?
Well, I think probably that next step is going to be, and nobody wants to do this age, but they need to make some sort of collectively bargained, and it doesn't even need to be players as a union, just an organization, something there where there's some formal structure. Do you think about it, like when we played, if you had an issue, like, okay, you call the PA, or there was a document that had rules to it. Well, right now they just kind of thrown together all these different rules and there's nobody really there to enforce them. They just go sue in court. And so it's like, it takes forever to get anything done. They don't have the right stuff incentivized. The fact that you can play 4 games and then like redshirt is fine, but then now people are like, I'm gonna play 4 games, I'm gonna go redshirt so I can transfer somewhere else. I don't think that was the intent of the original rule. So I think the next progression is somehow bringing them in-house, and you're going to see this now when the guys get the revenue split. There'll probably be ties to that where, hey, if you're getting money, you've got to stay.
Yeah. So like, did you see that happening? I didn't. I guess that's one of those things I didn't even think about, is someone going to being at school and being someone that thought they were going to be a starter, going through the first 4 games and then saying, all right, I'm going to either redshirt here and wait, which I don't know how that can happen, or redshirt and obviously enter the portal.
Well, I think the hardest thing is for the quarterback situation that he already played 4 years. This is his last year. And it was more like a principle thing. You didn't give me what you promised me. I'm going to stop. I'm going to try to go get it somewhere else. It's not like he's going to go make more money, but he could get some right down like at another place next year. And I think that's the why. It's almost like our principle. You never delivered. So what, I'm going to continue to play out this season and I'm not going to get anything when I could potentially get it somewhere else. And it's not like he was a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but he made the decision. So, and I understand why he did it. So the biggest thing to me is the fact that we all look at this and we're such loyal guys as football players that and everybody's like, be about the team, be about the team. And then when you make it that, no, the team, the coaches, the collectives didn't live up to their end of the bargain. I'm going to make a decision. And then now it's flipped. And we're like, that guy's not tough. That guy's selfish. That guy's this. That's my problem with it, which is why we need the guardrails to protect the players. So they shouldn't have to make those type of decisions.
So I want you to imagine this, Age. Like, and Schlegel, you could probably imagine this. You actually did transfer. So, I mean,
yeah.
Age, I mean, you were a highly recruited guy, huge, big time. Like, imagine after 3 games, you walk into Mark D'Antonio's office and tell him, like, hey, appreciate it. I'm going to sit out now because I don't feel like I was getting what I was promised here, and I'm going to sit out and then go transfer somewhere else. How would you envision that meeting going?
That meeting would not happen, Bob. That meeting would never have happened, no matter probably how much I wanted. If I ever wanted to have that meeting, which I never did, but like if I wanted to, the thought of even exploring that meeting in my brain kind of scares me to sit in there, because I love D'Antonio. and I don't need to be. I wonder what he would say. Well, either he maybe he's like, good, get the hell out of here, see ya. We don't want you anyway. You open up a spot, or the other way. Like either way, it's a tough spot. Either way, it's not going to feel great.
How does the coach then combat this, AJ? Because you're seeing it now. There's a guy I was at USC that transferred from Georgia that now is going to sit out. There's the running back from UNLV that's now going to sit out. How do you think, again, in this world, which is why you also need contracts, because it goes into, right, managing rosters. But because we don't have that right now, how as a coach do you manage this?
It seems impossible to try to, like, all the things that coaches have to do right now to figure out like what your roster, who's going to be here, who's starting, whatever. That's just before even thinking about like winning football games. Like, how do I keep everybody happy? Which you can't. You definitely can't keep everybody happy. But I guess the good coaches, what it seems like, I try to ask those guys questions too if I ever see them. Anyone coaching any sport in college, and they like the good ones. I feel like they say, hey, I just have to be completely upfront and honest, like from the jump, from the beginning, and get them to trust me. And if someone's not getting the playing time they want and they need to leave, whatever, I'll give them my opinion or whatever. Like, I guess you just have to tell them and let them know almost like daily where you stand. I think that's part of it too. Like, it's always way worse when players and coaches don't have good communication and you don't really know what the coach is thinking. And like the player's always thinking, oh, this guy hates me. He doesn't want me to play. Like, you always think the worst. And in reality, he's probably not really thinking about you at all, but you got to figure that out.
Absolutely. That's very, very true. Age, we appreciate some of the time today, man. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. Thank you for sharing some of it with us and taking that walk down memory lane with your guy, Mark D'Antonio, and how that would ultimately go if you chose to say, peace, coach. Thanks, but no thanks. So go have fun with McAfee, man. We'll catch up soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you.
All right, folks. Now listen, you saw AJ looking pretty and handsome there, that nice, fine grill. Parents, athletes, protect what matters most. We've been telling you about it with X Sports mouth guard. Schlegel just threw it in right there. Tested and trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Mouth guards are scientifically tested to provide safety from those high-impact collisions, both your brain and your mouth. Export mouth guards offer 3 layers of advanced protection. The patented use of carbon fiber, they're 3D printed to your smile. So they're going to fit like a glove. Better protection, better performance, maximum comfort, clear communication. It's all there for you on the table. Focus on the game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit xsportguards.com/Bobby. Get 15% off. Folks, these things are a value. They will protect your brain. They'll protect what matters most. Export. All right, coming up next. So coach battled a lot of things. Strength coach. I want to hear Schleg's thoughts on this, of guys getting into the business, how tough it is in there, and what it's like on the other side. Coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
That's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegel, I want to get into this a little bit now. And folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for consuming it. Hopefully you enjoyed what you just got there with our guy, AJ Hawk. It's always fun to catch up with him. Please like, subscribe, leave your comments. We really appreciate it. Share with friends. We continue to grow this thing. If you're watching on Bally's, thank you as well. I want to talk a little bit, Schlegel, about the former Alabama strength coach, Scott Cochran. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he went to Georgia then as well, was running special teams. This guy was with Nick Saban for a long time, a Titan in the strength and conditioning world, coached 77 All-Americans, 41 first-round NFL draft picks, won 8 national championships between LSU, Bama, and Georgia. Guys seem to have it all. Ended up having to step back, had an opioid addiction, I believe, struggled through a lot of stuff, Schlegel. I know that you've worked with Scott Cochran. I saw this, had migraines, he had all these issues. It's tough. It's running hot being a college coach. Kind of give us the inside scoop of kind of what happened here and how to operate within the confines of being a high juice, high energy guy and making sure that you can still stay sane and survive.
Well, I never personally worked with Scott Cochran, Bob.
I know, but you know who Scott
I
is.
I know the business. I just wanted to preface that. But
yeah.
But again, when you're at LSU working with Tommy Moffitt, it was cool to get back into a story. Tommy Moffitt, who's now at Texas A&M, great strength coach in his own right. He was like, I'll do anything to get in the profession, mowing his grass, whatever. Boom, he comes on. He works his way up. Now he's an assistant at LSU, follows Saban, goes to Alabama and does what they do there. They won 6 national championships. I mean, the guy has done everything in the profession. And I think sometimes people, because of college now and the social media and stuff, they view guys as like they're juice guys or like, guys, listen, man, like our job in there is to be energy givers, but the players need to do that. But when they don't, like, you're going to continue to bring it. Again, I talk about all the time, you got to be an extrapolator of greatness in there, but it's also how you develop and design a staff around you. Can't just have one juice bringer all the time. Like, everybody's got to be their own unique way, but that's kind of where this went to. Like, that's your identity. That's what you do. It sucks. Like, back in the day, it was like herding cats and you're yelling all the time. Terrible. I understand exactly how his brain feels sometimes. So then we saw, and I appreciate his authentic testimony about it and the struggles that you have, because it's not necessarily that you're doing it for you. Like those guys expect that of you, and that's kind of who you are. So I want to continue to give that to them on a daily basis. When you're a strength coach in the college game, and honestly, the high school strength coaches out there, guys, are a special breed in of themselves because they're training 200 to 400 kids on a daily basis. That is a lot to program for. But you're in the business because you truly love maximizing people. And I never want that to escape anybody. Sure, the money has grown, but the money has grown for the head guys, and it's grown for the other staff as well, not to the heights that I think it probably should be, but it's getting better because you're with those players on a daily. And again, that's why now in the NIL world, in college football world, the relationships that you have with those guys on an authentic level and your ability to just focus on, my job is to maximize you, regardless if you're here next year or not, I'm focused on maximizing you. That has to be what you're all about. I believe that Scott and his staff, and there's been a long tree of that now, guys. Like, a lot of his former assistants are now head guys, and you've seen that with Coach Mick and his staff, and now those guys are head guys. And it's all still very old school with all the new school bull crap that's out there. It's still fundamentally old school because the game of strength and conditioning has not changed for a very, very long time. We've gotten better at it. We've gotten more efficient at it. But at the end of the day, it's all about the development of those players. And I'm happy that he was able to discuss this because regardless of where you are, not just strength and conditioning, not just coaching at the pro level or the college level, it's at any level or any level of business, we all struggle with some things. This is what his struggle was. I'm happy to see that he's overcoming it. And bam,
It's tough. I mean, it was tough because, like you said, you knew of him, people around him in the industry. You'd see him on TV, and this is a guy that was out there with Alabama front and center, bringing juice, bringing positivity, been struggling with this for 10 years. And I saw this, and he resigned at Georgia. And it's like, where do you go from here? You've invested your whole life in it. You know that your job that you love is also killing you. It takes so much emotional energy. And Schlegel, I see it when you're with those guys. Like, you're a wrung out sponge. Your favorite term is, I'm so blown out. And you get so blown out doing all those different things. And so, yeah, it takes a lot out of you. You give so much. And it's just, he's still a young man, Schlegel. He's not much older than you, isn't he? He's in mid-40s. And so I'm just trying to figure out where you go from there. Like, what does that next step in your life look like? If something you love so much, you've been doing at such a high level at the biggest programs, the best places, what that ultimately looks like as you try to transition out of it. My goodness, like it's a very, very cruel and unrelenting beast. You're used to being in there all the time, working your butt off, going through everything. And I think he just wanted to kind of get his story out there because he was one of the stars of that Alabama Georgia runs. People saw him out there and what he was able to do, and all the juice that he was ultimately bringing was fantastic. One other piece with that I want to touch on, Schlegs, and we'll throw this up here too because this says it's Mark D'Antonio, former coach of both mine and Schlegs. He was only here during Schlegs' redshirt year. But you had a connection with him in Air Force. Longtime coach at Michigan State, coached for 3-4 years. That's, I think, 3 years at Cincinnati before taking that job. D coordinator at Ohio State. And it's a pretty nice little deal now for him that they're going to, if we could throw this up, Pat, of D'Antonio. And he's going to be honored. He's going to be put in the Michigan State Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame, whatever that is up there, and honoring him for what he did, which was a pretty epic 10-year run. They're doing it on the weekend of the Ohio State game, which probably isn't great for Sparty, but I think they wanted to do that for him because of the connectivity he had with both schools.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for what Michigan State was and being able to win Big Ten championships and just knowing him as a coach, Bob, and you have a relationship with him further than mine, I just highly respect the guy. And the things that I learned just from his defense when I was there my redshirt year that carried over into Haycock and Fickle, like those things I absolutely love about his defenses. And it was all about effective quarterback. I thought it was simple yet complex, and everybody knew what the standard was for the Silver Bullet defense. The standard is the standard, man. And he took that to Michigan State, and just I'm happy to see that they're recognizing him out there and everything that he meant to Michigan State football.
It is good. And, full disclosure, my brother played for him at Cincinnati. My youngest brother's married to his daughter. I've always had an infinite amount of respect for Mark. That's why we were joking around with AJ, who we had on earlier, talking about this, with what he ultimately brings to the program, like the toughness, the grit. Because he's not a very big guy. It's amazing.
No.
If you look at Mark D'Antonio, like Mark D'Antonio ain't scaring anybody with his physical stature, but yet he's one of the most intimidating guys you're going to find. Like there was nobody out there who could lean in on you, and you would just watch his face during the games. Like, and I love watching Michigan State. It was always cold. He had that sock hat on, just scowling. And quick story before we get out of here. You came to my wedding, Schlegs. You were in it. AJ was in it. And we invited some of our former coaches, I think Fick and Tress and D'Antonio. And Mark was up at Michigan State. They were playing, Michigan State basketball was playing that day, so he came a little late, just got to the reception, about an hour in. And his wife, and him were very, very kind, polite when they came up. Sorry we're late. He was supporting Izzo. I get all of it. And Courtney had a drink or two, and she said, hey, he gives her a hug and their congratulations, a big, big step. And she goes, this is the first time I've ever seen you smile. And Becky gives him the elbow, his wife. And it's like, yeah, I told you look mean all the time. You always look angry. And that was just kind of his look. Like he had a nice resting, angry face, just always ready to go. Ultra demanding.
Yes.
But I will tell people this. He and AJ will second, I'm sure, you got a little bit of it. I'm a better player for having played for Mark D'Antonio because of his relentless pursuit of perfection and demanding excellence from his players. And so a honor well earned. We would not have won a national championship without Mark D'Antonio. I know he wouldn't. Jim Tressel's tenure would not have gotten off to a 2-1 start against Michigan without him. We wouldn't have beat K-State in a Rose Bowl, beaten Miami. He was remarkable when you saw him do it at Cincinnati, build that program, and then ultimately build one at Michigan State, which you were on the sideline for one of those epic defeats, that he hung out there. He was a heck of a ball coach. And
great ball coach.
Going to be appropriately honored now. So we're going to take a quick little break. We got some news, though. Chip Kelly talking about the run game, what that ultimately looks like, the running backs here, how pumped he is to have some horses. Well, we'll talk about that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, now we're here with some headlines brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Whole Health, offering personalized treatment plans to help you feel better. Whatever ailments you've got, you're struggling with, weight loss, lack of sleep, muscle loss, low energy, Affinity, they can help you with all of it. They provide expert guidance to safely reach your health goals. They've got Ohio covered, Cleveland, Columbus. They're also in Indy, Chicago. I've been a patient for 7 years. Go check them out by going to affinityWholeHealth.com and get your free consultation today. See how you're feeling. All right. Our guy, Jake Butt, who we had on Wednesday. Yeah, so we had on Wednesday yesterday. Talked a lot about this Ohio State run game and how good they were. We talked some Michigan. We can throw this up here. Talking about Chip Kelly and what he is ultimately doing, the difference between last year and this year. And so people talk about pace and tempo and everything that ultimately plays into. If we could toss that up, Pat. The no huddle in 2023 strikes, they went no huddle 80% of the time. This year, just 39% of the time. Gap run schemes, which is like your traditional double teams or you're kicking out and you're pulling guys, 29%. This year, almost 50%. And they've upped the screen game with the running backs and basically doubled that up. So you've got a whole different element here. And if we click across, Pat, we can throw up here and see Jake breaking this down because he does a fantastic job of it. We get this. All right, well, we don't necessarily have the sound up. You can see him breaking that down, diving on in there.
Scheme is you could look for pullers. That's gap scheme. So I was talking to Chip Kelly when we called their game against Western Michigan, and I asked him, what do you need to be an offensive lineman in this system? And he said, you have to be athletic and you have to be able to play in space. A ton of these runs, when you look at Quinshad Judkins popping a run, you look at some of their screen games, it's the offensive linemen out in space that are springing these runs. These guys have thoroughbred horses, but it's on Chip Kelly to just get them to that second level. Then for the most part, it's going to be a touchdown.
Boom. Well done. And that's big right there. And get these big double teams. They're pulling guys. The running game looks different. They're pulling wide receivers, and we talk about it. But this is the evidence that kind of backs it up, and we've seen that production strikes because of that ultimately increase.
Hey, guys, listen, man. Total right now, all the running backs, right? 723 yards, averaging 7 a carry. Q's averaging 9. Trey's averaging 8. You got 13 total touchdowns. Throwing Will Howard in there. And you're right, Bob. Like, we heard earlier in the year Ryan Day talk about utilizing tempo as a weapon, whereas last year it's like 80% of it was no huddle. They can go fast when they want to go fast, meaning they catch a defense and they have the personnel that they like versus that. We can go tempo, no huddle because they can't substitute. We're not going to substitute. But when we come to huddle, right, they can substitute out. So they want to be able to utilize tempo as a weapon. But more importantly is the nugget of the gap. And why I say that is everybody's a little bit different. The league runs gap and they run zone, and some teams are more zone than gap. We're now balanced. And so what are your keys as a linebacker when you do that, right? Do I have to come down and take the double team off this guy? Are they going down, right? Elephants kind of on parade, which if they're not getting to the second level, you know that it's a play action pass bootleg. Like those are things you're thinking about as a linebacker. And then you're also keying, are they pulling? Where's it going to go? Misdirection, utilizing the field. We all know that I absolutely hate tossing to the boundary, But why do they do that? They do that sometimes just to keep you honest.
Because
then they're going to do it to the field.
And get a numbers advantage. It's all right there. That is the
It's all
headlines today, brought to you by Affinity Whole Health. And look at that stinking run game. It has been very, very effective. All right, coming up next, it's our favorite segment, brought to you by Real Truck Tailgate Talk. We answer your questions coming up next.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories. And bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now it's our favorite segment. Every week we answer your questions. It's Tailgate Talk, brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck, the #1 truck accessory brand in the United States, with top-selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party. Man, they can make your truck into a stinking camper. They've got all kinds of things on there, racks in the back, brush guards on the front, interior accessories. They've got it all covered for you. So gear up for the season. Bring your truck to life at realtruck.com, just like Schlegel and I did. And your truck will perform for you. All right, got some questions now. They're going to be fired away. So this is a really pertinent question because we got Ben Stevens coming up next from Sports Grid, who's going to answer all our stuff and all our gambling questions. But this one comes from my guy, Famegase. Do we have a decent answer, Schlegs, for the run-heavy offenses OSU is about to face? Do we have a good third linebacker to bring in or safety down into the box?
Yeah, I mean, we 100% do, guys. And, 𝗟𝗓𝗡 has played very well. CJ Hicks. Again, this kind of goes back to the old defense that you and I played, Bob, where you have a 9-technique Sam linebacker. Like we haven't even talked about Sam's in a long time, it seems like. But, yeah, you do have an answer for that. And let's not kid ourselves, guys. Like OSU runs the football. And Michigan State, they've also – thrown, I guess Childs has thrown like 7 picks this year too. Yeah. And it's not like they're a world beater on the ground. And when you go back and look, like everybody's like, oh, the run game, like they gave up 125 yards last week. It wasn't to the standard that we wanted. But previously they hadn't allowed a run over 10 yards. So I'm not necessarily worried about that because of what Michigan State's going to try to do to us. They're going to want to control the clock. I believe that we will stop the run. But yes, we do have a package like that. You can bring in 𝗟𝗡𝗡. You can bring in CJ Hicks. I feel completely confident in them being able to stop the run. Here's
the good news with this, is we got Ben Stevens coming up here right after this to get your fix for all of the weekend's best bets and a feel for all the games. Ohio State, you saw them throw 4 tight ends out there. So they have the ability to get in the power run game and do some stuff. And when you do that, they can practice against it. And so, yeah, you can get 3 linebacker packages in there. That's something they've worked on. They showed that a little last year. If you need to throw a 4th linebacker in there, they can do it. Like, that's the reality. Sonny Styles gives you a lot of versatility right there with what he can do. But you start looking at some of the young guys, the CJ Hickses, the 𝗟𝗡𝗡s. I mean, Gabe Powers. You could even throw Peyton in there. Like, those guys have looked really good. So they have those options. James has trained them up. They have the packages. It'll just be a function of how do you need to handle the run this week? What does the other team do? And where are they best? All right. Appreciate it. Keep firing those questions away. If we didn't get to them today, we'll get to them tomorrow. Thank you for shooting away. Now, we got our guy, Ben Stevens, to answer all your questions here on Thursday afternoon here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
That's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yep.
Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now we're going to welcome in our favorite guest of the week, Mr. Ben Stevens, giving us all the information here on this week. And give him a follow at Ben Scott Stevens on X, Sports Grid Radio. Check him out there as well. Ben, we got a Friday night seems to be like the new big night for college football. And we have earlier in the season a game that would have been circled. Now, Virginia Tech hasn't really played up to standard. They just got beat by your Scarlet Knights last week, so you're not going to be crying for them too much. But they're going to be heading down to Miami. This is a big potential game for them. They still haven't played an ACC game. Can they keep this thing close against a really talented Hurricane squad?
Bobby, it's a great point. Back in the summer when this line opened up, we circled this as the first true test really for two ACC contenders. We expected to be there every step of the way this season, looking for that ACC championship and at least a title game appearance. Miami has lived up and even exceeded our expectations. To this point, the Hokies have been far, far more disappointing. Virginia Tech just 1-3 against the spread this season. They got upset by Vandy in overtime as a 2-touchdown favorite. Last week inside Lane Stadium, laying more than a field goal. Your family, your religion, and Rutgers football winning outright on the road. And one of the fears I had for the Scarlet Knights that was kind of exposed, not Kyron Jones necessarily, but was that ground game for Rutgers. Well, Miami's rush defense has been really a pleasant surprise for Miami, not just this year, guys, but even last year, second best in the ACC, allowing just over 105 yards per game. That's pretty good numbers by the time a college football season comes to a close. And as we shared last week, a lot can change on 1 week. Perception, 2 weeks, certainly can change after 4. Miami has been great. They're 3-1 against the spread, the only non-cover when they barely missed out on the cover against FAMU. They were laying 49.5 points. They won by 47. Virginia Tech has stumbled. This line in the summer, 7.5, 8.5 points in favor of Miami, but Tech seemed to be maybe that up-and-coming ACC team. Not so much, a 19.5 point spread. I would still think the Hokies, because of their reliance on the ground game and because Brent Pry is still a really good defensive mind, they keep this within 3 scores. But I don't think it's really going to be close outside of that. Miami should roll by double digits.
Hey, let's talk about your Rutgers team because they had it last week. They dominated the time of possession. You got Washington coming in, and you got a line of what, 2.5? What do you got in that game?
Yeah, 2.5 right now, Schlegel, and that's really where it stayed for the entirety of the week. I bet it early in the week as I tried to have the foresight to bet Rutgers plus 4.5 against Tech. This is where things get concerning. One of the reasons that I believed in Rutgers entering this year was a defense that returned everybody, and that includes Mo Toure, who, of course, is missing the entirety of this season. But Dario Jabome has been a great backup. However, some of the defensive front has struggled. They're allowing more than 161 yards per game on the ground. I highlighted why Kyron Jones might be an issue for Tech last week because of even struggles against teams like Howard defending the run and a mobile quarterback. So what does Washington present? Well, Will Rogers isn't really going to scamper around. They're going to try to throw it through the air. But Jonah Coleman, who followed Jed Fish from Tucson up to Seattle, has been darn good. We have a great running back matchup tomorrow night in Piscataway. Jonah Coleman and Kyle Monungai, 2 of the top 5 leading rushers in the Big Ten Conference to start off this season. Washington has a very tough task. They look good in their Big Ten debut against a Northwestern team that's struggling a little bit to find that offensive mojo to start this year, but UW did cover as an 11.5 point favorite. But when we think of teams covering as a favorite, you probably don't first go to Greg Schiano in Rutgers, but you would be incorrect. Rutgers is one of 5 FBS programs to start off a perfect 4-0 in each of the past, or 3-0, excuse me, in each of the past 4 seasons, Schlegs. And in that time, since the start of 2021, Rutgers is 13-5 against the spread when booked as a favorite. They have not often been the favorite side in Big Ten play, but when they are against anybody, they are favored for a reason. Defense has to be good. And could it be a letdown spot for the Scarlet Knights, trying to improve to 4-0 for the first time since 2012? It was the last season they won 9 games in Piscataway. I think it will be. I would lay the number with Rutgers under a field goal in a close but very good game, and Rutgers ends up with a win.
All right, big game out in Little Manhattan. 2 teams that I was way wrong on last week. I thought Oklahoma State could handle Utah, especially if there was no Cam Rising. Kansas State gets housed by BYU. Kansas State, little less than a touchdown favor is what I'm seeing, Ben. Where are we on that?
Yeah, Bobby, it's a great point. Both teams wildly disappointing last week. I told you guys here, I did not agree with Oklahoma State being the home underdog. We still had no idea on if Cam Rising would play despite optimistic and promising practice reports. Sure enough, I said, wait until we see the guys walk out onto the field, breaking the first huddle. And it was Zach's younger brother in Isaac Wilson, who was not great, threw 2 interceptions. But Mekhi Bernard was so good against an Oklahoma State defense. Boy, they missed Jim Knowles. They really want to bring him back from Columbus because since he left, it has been bad. They have been the worst total defense in the Big 12 each of the past 2 years. And this year, it is not any better. Mekhi Bernard running for more than 180 yards for the Utes last week. I don't think there has been a reactionary line move based on this game, Bobby, which is good to pay attention to because the Cats got housed, as we know, late night in Provo. Many have struggled against those BYU Cougs when it's after sundown on a Saturday night in Provo, Utah. And we saw that. Kansas State looked terrible. They're getting exposed through the air this year, which is not something that Chris Kleiman's secondaries often have to deal with. They'll have a test against Alan Bowman, but he wasn't great in a big spot last week against Utah. My favorite bet for this game is not really a side. Feels pretty fair at 5.5. Again, I don't think we have reactionary line movement for this game. It's DJ Giddens, the running back for K-State, over 94.5. I might bet the over 194.5. I think he has a huge day back in the Little Apple against a Pokes defense that is really struggling to start this year.
Matt, you're blowing my mind. So I'm going to go right now to Louisville, Notre Dame. Defense, Notre Dame, outstanding, 9.8 per game. Louisville entered 12th in the country, right? Points per game on offense. Who do you got on this one? Minus 6.5.
We love year-over-year spread math. We try to find some commonalities, right? Some common denominators. Exactly. 6.5 point spread, as was the case last year for this same matchup, top 25 tilt. The game was in Louisville, so slightly different, but Notre Dame lost that game outright after a huge, dramatic come-from-behind victory against Duke. And Notre Dame faltered. One of the reasons they missed out on the college football playoff. What can be expected of the Irish here? Will they falter again at home, laying less than a touchdown? For me, this game is pretty simple when it comes to the key matchup that will dictate the outcome. If Notre Dame can win, if the Irish can win comfortably by more than a touchdown. It's can they play from in front? If they do, all good. Don't need to see the arm of Riley Leonard. He has not thrown for more than 170 yards in any of the games for the Irish this year, but he has been great. And I mean great utilizing his legs. If they play from in front, if Jeremiah Love, if Riley Leonard, if Jadarian Price are really good, that's fine. Louisville will not have an answer. Tyler Shuck has been great now in his 6th year of college football for the Cards. 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions as he put on display last week against Georgia Tech. But under Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame has been a top 10 passing defense in each of his first 2 years. This year, they're in the top 15 once again. I think it will be difficult for Louisville to generate that offense. Last year, they had a great ground game with Isaac Guerendo and Jawar Jordan. This year, it's been a mix so far. Donald Chaney, the Miami transfer, a couple of young backs that have not really been tested by this Notre Dame defense. If they can play from in front, Notre Dame should win this game. Step up in a big spot at home. Notre Dame, a perfect 2-0 against the spread against teams not from the MAC. But against teams that play action, they're 0-2 against the number. Again, that leads me to believe Notre Dame wins this game by a touchdown probably at home if they play from in front. If they play from behind, unless Riley Leonard does something we have not seen him do, it could be a struggle against Louisville. Play from in front. The Cardinals really good on the defensive side of the football. Just one final point, one of 10 teams allowing less than 100 yards per game on the ground. So that will work against Notre Dame, but they play from in front. They win this game. If they trail, if it's close, that's not a recipe for success for the Irish.
So Ben got a nice big night slate of games across the Peacock, ABC, all around, NBC. Starting with the first, the big one here in the SEC, Georgia going to Bama. Georgia a slight favorite in this one. Kalen DeBoer's first shot in this rivalry. How's this going?
Yeah, Bobby, really the spread kind of indicates everything you need to know about this game. I'm sure you guys have seen this so far, but Alabama is getting 2.5 points as a home underdog. It would snap a 113-game consecutive streak for Alabama in Tuscaloosa as a home favorite. The Crimson Tide have not been a home underdog since 2007, Nick Saban's first year, November, against the ranked LSU team. They were getting 6.5 inside Bryant-Denny. They lost that game by a touchdown. So is the right side favored? I would say yes. Again, Georgia is a really good football team. I know the last time we saw the Bulldogs, both of these teams coming off an open week, they did not look good against the Kentucky team in a game we expected to be ugly in Lexington, and sure enough, it was. But Georgia's been pretty good covering numbers in SEC play in this 3-year span since 2021 when they have won 2 national championships and they have played Alabama a ton in SEC title games, 13-11 against the spread, against conference competition. Georgia has played 51 games since they ended 2020 on a 4-game win streak. They have won 49 of 51. Their 2 losses against the Crimson Tide in the SEC championship. Last year, they lost for the first time in 30 games in that SEC title by a field goal in Atlanta to the Crimson Tide. And of course, because of that, missed out on the college football playoff. All to say, guys, Georgia to me is the better team at this moment. Still think Alabama will make the college football playoff. Still think it's a great, close, and competitive game. But I do believe that Georgia is the better side. I think the line is correct. I would lay a short number with the Dogs.
All right, last one, best one. Illinois going to Penn State. Illinois has been hot. I love Luke Altmaier. Who do you got?
Yeah, you know, Schlegs, this is a really intriguing game. If you look at what Illinois has done, they should cover this number. It's 17.5. for a total of 47.5. Do we remember the last time these two teams faced off in State College? Do we remember the history that was made that day back in October of 2021? 9 overtimes. And Illinois knocked off a ranked Penn State team 20-18 in those 9 extra sessions, the longest game we've ever seen. And in classic Big Ten fashion, still stayed under. 47.5 is the total. Let's say the odds makers are correct. We get around 7 touchdowns, 48 to 49 points. What Penn State would have to do in this football game to cover as a 17.5-point favorite, this game wouldn't be close. It'd be 28-7, and that's about it. It'd be 34-14, and that would be about it. I think Illinois is better than that, so I cannot make sense of the line. I came on here last week, told you guys that if Nebraska ran the football effectively against an Illinois defense that had not been great defending the run up until this point, they should win the game. They did not. They carried it 36 times as a team for 50 yards. By far, Aaron Henry and Illinois' best performance defensively of this season. Luke Altmaier has been fantastic. 10 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. The only quarterback in the country that has thrown for double-digit TDs and has not turned the football over through the air. He is going to have to be efficient and clean. Once again, I don't want to bet against Illinois because they are so good covering numbers as an underdog. 14-8 against the spread under Brett Bielema as an underdog. 9 outright victories, tied for the 4th most against power conference teams since the start of 2021. I do think there are some aspects that favor Penn State, who the defense is great. Tom Allen hasn't skipped a beat. Wonderful. But I think we are starting to see Drew Aller's maturation, 2nd best passer rating in the country, only behind Jackson Dart. And Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are still running very well. And again, Illinois is allowing, outside of the Nebraska game, more than 124 yards on the ground. If Penn State is better than Nebraska was at home, I think they win this game comfortably. I don't think I'm going to bet it, though, because I don't want to lay 17.5, and I don't want to bet against Illinois getting 17.5 either. So it's a weird kind of murky area.
That's a big number. All right. Last 30 seconds to a minute before we get you out of here, Ben. Ohio State traveling to Lansing, East Lansing, Michigan State. Over 3 touchdown favorite. Do you like any action in that?
Listen, when the odds come out for it, anytime touchdown, Ohio State defensive touchdown. Aiden Childs has thrown 7 interceptions this year, 5 INTs against the power conference programs he has played. He is going to be fine for the Spartans moving forward. This is a very, very tough spot. I would not mind even laying it with Ohio State, who, as you guys know, has dominated this matchup against the Spartans, and often by very, very large numbers. An average margin of victory of better than 24 points per game in the last 5. So I think it's a tough start for Aiden Childs, the young quarterback for the Spartans.
Gotcha, Ben. We really appreciate the time. You're as knowledgeable as anybody. Folks, give him a follow at Ben Scott Stevens on X, Sports Grid Radio. Check him out there, Ben. Thank you for some time today.
Guys, as always, appreciate it. Talk to you next week.
Ben Stevens, one of the best. All right, coming up next, we will wrap up the program with the parting shots from our guy, Mr. Anthony Schlegel, here on the Body.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegs, in our last minute here, give us your parting thoughts.
Now, Tregon Henderson had a great quote about Quinshon Judkins, and it was this: best running back in the country. That boy is talented, man. I'm so thankful to have him. He's going to be a huge part of this team. He is a huge part of this team. And I just look at the maturity to be able to say that guy is elite at what he does. And these are two guys that have been competing against each other from the jump in January through the spring, through the summer, in camp. They're splitting time. They're just doing what it takes to win, but he can appreciate how hard and how good Quinshon is. I just love to see that. That's a lot of maturity from a young man.
It is. It is. All right. So tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary, Schlegs, of your slam. So, folks, if you haven't seen it, make sure you stay locked in. Tune in here tomorrow on the Bobby Carpenter Show to see our guy, Anthony Schlegel, out there slamming dudes as a coach, not just as a player. Stay locked in here. Thank you for listening, watching.